Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's success story interview where we have the pleasure of speaking with Edwin. So, thanks so much for being here with us, Edwin. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Great. So, can you tell us which specialty and program you got into then?
Yeah. I actually match in neurology, and I match in my first preference at Georgetown University Hospital in Washington, D.C.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Was DC a specific area that you wanted to be in, or was it more so the program itself that you were interested in?
It was a program. I wanted to be in an academic institution who had a high reputation. And I was also looking somewhere in the East Coast. So to me, Georgetown was feeling like a glove. And um, it was a great experience to be able to kind of be there and just get to know the program, get to know the vibe and the feeling of the hospital. And I fell in love with the academic institution there. So it was a no-brainer for me that I wanted to be there. Yeah.
So, were you able to actually be there in person for your interview? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I actually I applied there. It's interesting how things kind of played out because I first when I came into the country, um, I was trying to look for either working opportunities or anything else. And I remember that that spot came out, and it was just like these moments of serendipity where the things kind of align.
Yeah.
And I started working as a medical assistant. I was
Okay.
working as a medical assistant for a couple of months. Okay, and then that kind of allowed me to introduce myself and get to know people, you know, and then crazy. You're not gonna believe this, but the person who was gonna take a fellowship in multiple sclerosis and neuroimmunology, that person dropped out.
Wow.
And then the spot became available, and I was like, "Can I fit it in?" And
Yeah.
they were like, "You know what? You're great. Definitely, let's do it." And
Wow.
then I just were doing this fellowship type of program, and that allowed me the opportunity to see uh, in a better way what I really wanted to look for. And I think that what made me like, what definitely just hit very well on me or kind of stroke on me is how well the program is crafted to residents, how much the program actually invests in their people. And mostly now, this academic institution now has like a binding program with the NIH. So in terms of research and great opportunities, to me that was like a huge opportunity there that usually other hospitals or academic institutions don't really have.
Yeah.
So that definitely that integration of the NIH and funding for research and all the things that we're doing now, it's basically making Georgetown one of the kind of top tier programs. And I can predict that in just a few years, we're going to be ranging in those top three programs in neurology at least. So no, it's great. So when I saw that opportunity, I was like, yeah, this is a place where I really want to be. And then the culture and the environment. So I guess I was kind of blessed to be able to kind of see this rolling out in front of my eyes. And I did work really hard for it. I won't lie.
Yeah.
And everything kind of got together really well. So I was very blessed, fortunate. Yeah.
So to clarify, you've did your fellowship first at this same program, and then you matched into the residency
So
program.
that's a great question. Although it was a fellowship, they crafted in a way that would allow for an international graduate, international medical graduate, to kind of fit in the spot. So they just kind of worded differently, so you could be able to take it. So in terms that will make sense, that will qualify as an externship or something like that. But
Uh-huh.
I was doing activities of closely related to what a fellow will do. So I was doing just inpatient exposure. I was doing outpatient exposure. So it was like a really comprehensive program that I was able to get. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah.
And so is research something that's really important to you and that you want to be involved with throughout residency and throughout the rest of your career in neurology?
Yeah, I think one of the most uh, fascinating things about neurology is that it's so vast and it's so rapidly evolving that
Hmm.
you could be part of a generation who is going to discover amazing things, that will put your name for generations to come. So I did see um, a great opportunity in neurology. As you know, it's an evolving field, and we're being able to do amazing things in just a couple of years in the field. So I'm more than excited and thrilled to be able to do that. And yes, I needed that type of program who will have this funding, which is most important, funding, so you can do research. And the integration between Georgia and the NIH is just a game changer in that regard.
Do you have particular areas of interest within the research field of neurology?
Yeah. So one of the things are truly fascinating. It's neuroimmunology by itself. Um, there's a lot of um, neuroimmunological type of diseases that are just
Hmm.
becoming more prevalent and more prevalent and more prevalent. And just by kind of looking at that, you could not just help neuroimmunological diseases by itself, but other type of immune related diseases as well by studying this. So definitely, I'm really interested in multiple sclerosis and that neuroimmunology portion of it that I'm doing. I have been able to fall in love with the field in that specific area. So I think it's exciting. It's you know something that is just growing every day more day.
When did you start getting an interest in neurology?
So it's funny because I always had, I don't know. It's just that correct me. I mean, I think everyone has their own story, right? But
Yeah.
I guess that's the life in some areas, specifically when it comes to career paths. I do believe, that there is something out there, you know. I used to call it God, but you can call it whatever you want. The people who watch you can call it whatever they want. But there is a guidance, when I ask for guidance, what do you want me to be? What type of physician should I be? And then, there were points in life where, you know, neurology were just coming along, and it became like a pattern. So, unfortunately, in my country, I was able to see two cases of multiple sclerosis. And we're talking about these countries from the tropics where you're not likely to see this. But I saw two people there. And for that small population in that country, it was a pretty big deal. And
Yeah.
one of them died in like a span of 6 months.
Wow.
And the other one was very disabled in a span of 6 to 8 months. So I was fascinated by it, and to think like how a disease can be so yeah, devastating in such a fast way, in such a dramatic way. And then I came here and I just see a day and night type of reality. And in
Yeah.
there, people are just being treated with steroids as a formal treatment. And here we have these amazing immune therapies. So um, I got hooked on it, and how fascinating this world is, and what a great realm. And of course, there are other games, trying to, kind of find interesting stuff. And honestly, um, you can do as much in surgery, let's just say. You cannot just discover new fibers or stuff. You cannot discover new things. But in neurology, there's a lot to unpack that we still need to see. So I saw it as an opportunity, and now we'll see what happens in the future. Yeah.
Amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about, your past and your medical school experiences, where you're from originally, and
Yeah.
how you ended up here?
Yeah. So I am originally from Honduras. That's Central America, just right at the belly of America. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people.
Yeah.
Uh, unfortunately, um, cursed with corruption from the government, but that's a different type of story. Um, my medical education is 8 years, when you usually have like basic science, and then you go to clinical sciences, and then after that you're going to have um, 4 years of like pure entire training in the clinical setting.
Hmm.
It was pretty cool because for people who are already here, they know that there's a lot of restrictions to practice medicine here, right? In there, we were surgeons, we were OBGYNs, we were ENTs. We did a little bit of everything. So the clinical practice in those countries is very rich. So I
Yeah.
think that's something that we have in our side when we come and practice medicine here. We have that, we're more seasoned, everybody, if you want to call it that way. But here, knowledge, it's a big deal, and I think that's the part that I was actually needing, to become like a great physician. So that was 8 years there. Um, I was pretty much top of my class with my peers,
Nice.
and yeah, I became the president of the student board association. So for people out there who thinks that, oh, I shouldn't engage in those things, those are actually a pretty big deal, because here, um, programs like to see people who is proactive, people
Definitely.
who can bring something different to the table, because they had to craft through thousands of interviews. So the sexier the application is, new things that you're able to do and you can bring to the table, the more impressive your application is. So leadership roles do play a weight. Let's say if you have to be comparing apples to apples, I mean, have no doubt that they're going to look at, what other new things you can have. And I have been able to speak with the program director in my institution,
Hmm.
and his insights were just fascinating in terms of sometimes the little things that matter so much, and that usually students are just hooked, obsessed with score. So, what are your credentials? Have you seen the forums, right? You have seen the forums on Facebook, you have seen the forums on Reddit, and they're like, "Oh, can you show what are your credentials, please?" And people are just so obsessed, and sometimes I'm very blunt, but people can be a little bit dumb about it, in terms of they're just focused on this course. And I've seen people with 260s, step one and step two, and they don't match.
Yeah.
So scores are not everything. Yes, they help. Yes, they're good, but they're have a less weight, and even more so now with the step one being pass fail. So USMLE course gives you gives you interviews. Okay, let's face it, it does give you some interviews, but they don't get you into residency. So if you're out there, thinking that I go to 60 here and go to 60 there, I'm gonna match. Be careful what you're doing, because I've seen people who does that and they do like a really messed up application and they just fail. And I've seen people who have multiple attempts and they have matching hardware. So to you out there, this is the question that I want to answer to you out there who don't have stellar scores. My step one wasn't great. My step two CK was great. I guess that kind of helped me a lot. But the reason why I matched, it's because of me and my professionalism and my hard work and all the things that I did to prove myself that I deserve the spot. So to you out there who are struggling with low scores, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you. You will have to work extra hard, but you can make it. And you will make it if you decide to do whatever it takes to take those opportunities and change them into perspective and into reality as well. So that conversation about scores, you know, don't get discouraged if you have low scores. Be smart, be effective, and do what other people are not doing. Improve your clinical exposure, improve your networking skills, and quite frankly, when you do an application for residency, that's the other pearl that I want to throw in there. Ask for people to review it. My application was reviewed by one attending who made comments in my application, in my personal statement, a 4-year resident who is amazing, and another resident who read my application and who read my personal statement. All those 4 people contributing to my application so I could put it in. So don't take your application lightly. Your application is not a checklist. You have to be mindful of what you're going to be putting out there. And whatever you put out there, the language has to be so effective that in a few words, you're going to be able to enchant program directors. So be careful with that, okay? If you have low scores, work hard, extra hard, super hard, okay? But do it effectively, okay? And that will get you places. So can you make it with low scores? Yes, you can. Will you have to work harder? Absolutely. And if you do that and you do it effectively, with things that will get you there, then more likely than not, you're gonna match. So don't get discouraged by those numbers and get to work. Then, you know, trying to find family reunification here, I just decided to come back to the country. And then it was a roller coaster from there. I was working and studying at the same time. You know, first, when I just arrived into the country, I was working as a server in a restaurant while I was studying for the steps. And then I became a bartender in the same restaurant while I was studying for the steps. And it was kind of weird because I'm pretty much the first bartender who don't drink. So I was making these cocktails and these really cool things, but I didn't even taste them. It was just like these musicians who were just making these great symphonies, and they were deaf.
It's all by
So
instinct.
yeah, so I did that for a couple of months, and then there was a point when I said I need to put my foot in the door, and that's one of the first things that I will encourage every single one who's watching this interview. You need to believe in yourself, not to be arrogant, not to become an you know um, how can I say it without being um, disrespectful? You don't have to be, well, let's just say that. Let's just say that you don't have to be an arrogant,
Hmm.
to think more of what you really are. But you have to believe in yourself. And believing in yourself is not a thing that you put out there, it's a thing that you put inside. And I think that's the main difference between believing in yourself and trying to put yourself as something you're not. If you believe in yourself, that's a personal thought. That's something that you create inside you. So I guess I did that. I decided to believe in myself. You know what? I can do this. So I know that me and God is basically telling me that I need one foot in the door. I just need one foot in the door and I'll make things happen. And I always said that to myself. I just need to grab a little bit of his, clothes and I will be healed, like in the Bible says. But I just need a little foot in the door and I will make things happen from there no matter what. I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna work extra, I'll come weekends, I'll do more things that I have to, but I just need one foot in the door. So I start to apply to different hospitals. I've done thousands of, no, not thousands, hundreds, not hundreds, but a bunch of applications in all the hospitals and private practices. And I got interviews, and there were places who were just bad. So besides believing in yourself, know how much you worth. So that's the second advice that would be people know how much you worth. And then I said, you know what? I don't deserve this. I could do better. And I was like, I need to put a foot not just in an institution, but in an institution who had a great program and a great reputation where I can just kind of, grow there and kind of, thrive. And then I was called in Georgetown. And I apply anywhere. I was like, yeah, you know what? Plan A is neuro, but then plan B can be internal medicine. All international medical graduates do this. So I was called by this cardiology practice and they are like, yeah, I mean, this is great. I love your profile. You're overqualified, but you know what? We kind of need one guy in neuro. And I was like, boom, fill me in. Let's do it. And they just called me. And then you're not gonna believe this, but from the time that I got the first call until I was hired, it was 2 weeks. You know well how how long it takes to onboard a person and kind of hire one, but they were in such a dire need that from the first interview that I had by phone to the actual day when I was hired, it was 2 weeks. It was unbelievable, how it happened. So then I start working and I say to myself, I am here now. I'm gonna make it count every single day. And I start working really hard And I started to just kind of show people who I was. I know I was an MA, but I will present the patient to the attending who I was working with that day. I will just try to find new ways, to kind of put myself out there, in a way with what? With work, not with words, but actually good work and trying to just,
Mhm.
whatever case it was, I have this finding on this patient. What do you think about this? And just trying to do DDX to see how engaged you were with the practice. So that basically helped me to just go over everything I was through. So yeah, when I was kind of working in that restaurant, I was like, gee, I mean, I shouldn't have come here. I mean, this is what's gonna happen. But things happen in the span of months. So
Yeah.
I decided to believe in myself. I knew my worth. And then when I had the opportunity that I wanted, I started talking crap and actually doing hard work. So those are the main three things that I can tell people from my experience, how I went from the darkness of not knowing what was going to happen to matching one of the greatest institutions, not just in the DC area, but actually in the country. So uh, I don't know if I talked too much about this answer, but that was pretty much it, how everything played out.
I think every word was worth its weight in gold. Did you get positive feedback from the people you were working with when you got that first experience, and input about how good of a job you were doing, or
Yeah,
areas for improvement, things like that?
yeah, yeah. So um, I know it's kind of difficult, but you have to be a yes man. And the things that you have to be a yes man. And when it comes to working, you have to say yes to everything. You want to put yourself out there, so you have to say yes to everything. But I did say yes to everything, but I did it with a smile. I did it with enthusiasm. Granted, it was the field that I wanted to be, so that kind of helped, because I was passionate about it. I was feeling great about it. So that will be another pearl there. Be in an institution that you want to stay, because that's the other thing about international makeover. I'll get asked all the time, research opportunities, research experience. And you know what? I just don't think that program directors value that as much as people really think, you know? So I know that might be controversial. Oh my God, what did he say? More research. But that's true. I mean, program directors are more interested in seeing hands-on, that you can touch a patient, that you have bedside manners, that
Right.
you can do this, that you can doctor. That's basically what it is. You cannot do it in an office, kind of going into the data. I'm not dismissing the idea of research. Everything is an opportunity, and those things can get you places. But don't just get tunnel vision on this, like, oh my God, research opportunities, research, research. Because at the end of the day, you're going to apply in the next cycle. And sometimes your research work is not even going to be published by that time. So that's another thing. So yes, not I when in terms of feedback, you kind of have to pursue it. You
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
a
have
good.
to pursue it. You have to be bold and brave enough to accept and take from the really sorrow taste of a feedback that says you need to be better,
Yeah.
and you have to celebrate and cannot stimulate yourself when you're getting a good feedback response. Thankfully, I always go positive feedback. People always love my attitude, my enthusiasm. That there's a personality thing involved in the people who match.
Yeah.
There is a lot of personality. You can see how personality plays a huge role, because at the end of the day, it's great that you know a lot of mechanisms from step one, but you're gonna be doctor. You're not gonna be talking about cells and immune response and interleukins to patients. They don't even know that. you know so your personality and your professionalism plays a huge role on what you're going to be matching, what you're going to be. And it's kind of hard uh, for program directors to kind of glimpse through that. So that's why I always say, if you're going to look for clinical experience, try to look for experience who will give you letters of recommendations that are going to be strong enough, that will say, I know this guy, I saw him working, he's freaking awesome, you need to take this guy. Not just mediocre letters of recommendation that sometimes people get. That actually hurts you more. So every time that you're thinking of a letter of recommendation, don't think of a one letter. I need a letter just to fulfill a requirement. No, think of what type of work can I engage, or what type of activity can I engage who's going to give me a rock star type of clinical experience. Find that provider who's going to be like a good mentor for you,
Yeah.
and impress him, impress her, and that person will give you a stellar letter of recommendation, because that's what you really need. You don't read a letter just for the sake of having a letter. And then if you're wealthy, which is something I wasn't, you can always pay for clinical experience. Thankfully, I didn't have to do that, but I do see that there was some colleagues who gonna pay for those services, and they got really good letters of recommendation, but of course they were paying for it, so it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to see. So yeah, always look for that feedback, and you had to pursue it yourself. You had to have a conversation, a mature conversation, and grab those providers and say, hey, how do you think I'm doing? And more likely than not, those providers are going to take care. They're going to get interested in your well-being, and they're going to interested in your growth. And that's what happened to me. I mean, the providers who I came looking for feedback, they became mentors to me, you know, and they
Mhm.
oriented me towards the right direction. And I'm happy I did that. So yeah, that would be pretty much what I think of it. Yeah.
What would be the first thing or the most important thing you would tell somebody who's just starting the residency application process for neurology?
The very first thing that I will kind of advise them is to look for experience in the neurology field. And let me tell you why. The vast majority, based on what I'm seeing, the vast majority of medical schools only have a 2 week rotation in neurology.
Yeah.
That's a lame rotation. They have 12 weeks of internal medicine. That's like 12 weeks of surgery, 2 weeks of surgery. And you have 2 weeks to cannot persuade someone to become a neurologist, you know? So program directors know this, that you don't really have a lot of exposure in neurology. So if you make it to have 3 or 2 letters of recommendations from neurologists, like, okay, this guy is really engaged with the program. 3 will be great. Hmm? So definitely, if you want to match in neurology, and that's what you really want, as in any other specialty, frankly, you have to be sure that they know that you're really interested in the program. That what you're applying for neurology is not like a backup plan. Although I guess that applies more for family medicine and internal medicine, which is usually the plan B for medical students, especially international. But you have to be engaged. You have to prove that you really want to become a neurologist. You have to make the case that
Yeah.
neurologist is what you want. That's what I will say. First thing, you want to be a neurologist, fine. Make the case that you really want to be a neurologist. So your clinical experience has to be geared towards that. Your letter for recommendations have to be geared towards that. Your exposure in medical school has to be geared towards that. If you want to do research because research is such a holy grail for you, then make sure that it's actually research in neurology, as with any other field, right? Because it's not a good look that you have a lot of experience in OBGYN and you're applying for neurology. It's like, what are you doing here, right? So for the person who is crafting his application for neurology, make sure that the brand neurology is everywhere in your application,
Yeah.
because program directors will want to see that you're actually that's what you really want. Otherwise, they're not gonna bother their time to give an appointment, to give an interview.
So where do you see yourself in, let's say, 10 years from now? What sort of practice do you envision for yourself? What are you manifesting currently?
Yeah. So I do think that I want to pursue again multiple sclerosis and neuroimmunology as a field, all the
Mhm.
neuroimmunological diseases. Probably do another fellowship in neuroophthalmology, but we'll see about that one.
Yeah.
But I do want to see myself not just doing um, that as a whole, But I do see myself also helping other people, especially people from my country, those underserved and really poor communities.
Mhm.
I do see myself helping them. And hopefully I will be married, I will have kids. You have to make room for these things, you know.
Yeah.
The idea that um everything is medicine and that's it, that's not the way it is. Wellness by itself, is a state that has to be in every single area of your life. So if you have, this is a schizotypical type of personality, then fine, by all means, you're gonna be alone, you're gonna be happy. But for the rest of us, who don't have that luxury, because I think it's a luxury, I think it would be great to be alone yourself and not having to deal with other things, but that's a different conversation. But those who don't have the luxury, we need someone in their lives. You have to think of these things as well. You have to think about having kids, getting married, you know, engaging in what type of sports or activities they want to have. You don't have to be all about medicine because then you get burned out and you become like a not a great provider. You don't become like a great physician about it. So don't play down the other areas of your life. So I do see myself, probably, hopefully married and having a couple of kids and helping other people. But in terms of my field, I do want to have a footprint and kind of leave a name in the neurology community, as someone who will discover new things. What I still don't know, but just keep in mind when I started all these things, I didn't even know where I was going to end. So things came out okay. So I guess that, down the line, I will be figuring things out as well.